It's interesting because you were talking to me about how you just always thought our show was there to stay and it was fine. Yeah. And a lot of people don't know because this interesting thing has happened with Parks and Recreation where it is now just one of those shows that's chapter and verse, and comedy people know it. And not just comedy people, but it's like it plays a lot. People really know it. It's esteemed. And they don't know that it was a running gun battle to keep that thing on the air.
Big time. Yeah, every year we thought we were gone. For maybe the first 4 or 5 out of the 7 seasons we were on, because NBC was just, we were joking that our show was on the table, hooked up to machines, and then a new show would come wheeling in next to us, and they'd just be like, clear! And they would just be trying to save that show over and over again, and then they'd call time of death, and they'd put this sheet over the show, and they'd bring the show out.
And suddenly Susan didn't make it.
I mean,
Parks and Rec's still here.
Totally. We had about 5 upfronts where it was like, this is the next new big show. And we would watch it come in so hot with tons of marketing, and then it would die. And we would just be like, beep, beep, beep. And so we hung in there and long enough until finally, at like season 5, like your show, like critically, we were very loved, but we were always worried we were going to get canceled. And although we would all give anything to have those numbers now, whatever we had.
Yes.
It was like, we have a 3.8 or whatever. And I was like, this is a disaster,
Right.
Then streaming started to happen. And it all started to like dovetail at the same time.
I am almost every day I thank the streaming gods and the internet, because I never thought the stuff that we were making, I always thought we did this really weird thing tonight. It'll never be seen again because it's just tonight, and maybe it'll be rerun once in the summer, but then that's it. It's gone. And I was at the SNL thing, and when you buy a Samsung television, there's a Conan O'Brien channel.
Yeah,
and
it won't go off my TV.
Well, here's the thing.
I'm trying to get it off.
Bill Murray came up to me, and he was like, yeah, Conan, there's this thing on my TV. It's just you, and it's you. And I went, and he went, and I can't get it off. I was like, well, I can't help you. And he went, yeah, some of it's really good, But it was just so weird that stuff that I thought would never be seen.
Yeah.
There's moments on the internet. And the good work gets picked out. It rises to the top. There's plenty of stuff we all did that we're like, okay. But that tends to not get passed around as much. Mm-hmm. And it creates this illusion that everything we did was super funny.
That's
which in my case was like, no, that's a complete illusion. You're just not seeing the other ones because they don't get clicks.
That's for sure. Yeah, that's sketch in a nutshell too. So much of it is just like, what's your batting average? Like you're going to get 1 out of 3 good sketches if you're lucky. Parks was like that, the trajectory of that. And getting back to your show for a second, what was so exciting about being there at the beginning, not only was one of our own, like Andy was an improviser that we knew who suddenly
from Chicago,
from Chicago, who could buy an apartment and we could go over to it.
Yeah,
we were like, what?
I remember he had parties. He had an apartment that was like on 19th or 20th Street downtown, and it was kind of a loft. And he, I wasn't having parties. I was just, but I would go to Andy's parties, and it was everyone from UCB's, you and Matt Walsh and Besser and Ian, and it's just like this whole salon of super funny people. Plus, sometimes you go to an Andy party and there'd be like a guy in a fez in the corner with an eye patch. There were like people with parrots on their shoulders.
Yes, it was just right. New York, like, early 90s, like David Rakoff and Amy Sedaris and, all these like people that were kind of coming through and just starting out as well in different ways. It felt very chic. And then also, truly, your show allowed me to pay my rent, get health insurance, tell my parents that I was going to be on TV. All the beginnings of that. It got me so many jobs. People saw, I think, my first movie, which was the world famous Deuce Bigelow. Very, very proud of my performance in that. But I remember, I think
killed it.
But Rob Schneider, I think, saw me like on your show, and I think that stuff helped me when we were selling UCB the sketch show. It was just such a huge deal, and I can remember. Under 6, and remember that, like, if you had under 6 lines on Conan show, you got paid a certain amount of money. And then if you got over 6, you got paid like $100 more, because of SAG minimums and stuff. And it was a huge deal. We did a ton of staring contests. A ton of bits. I think my first thing was I was under me and John Benjamin were under giant foam rubber Conan and Andy outfits.
Yeah.
And we had to run around a track all day or something.
It makes no sense.
No sense. And I was like, I made it.
Really
I did it.
I was just at this SNL and I saw Tina and she's with her husband, Jeff Richmond. And I'm sorry, Jeff, but I immediately go to when we used Jeff Richmond, who's, scores all this stuff. He's very brilliant. He's incredibly successful. We used him and he played Cupid. So he was in a diaper, hanging on a rope with a bow and arrow, and like some glitter in his hair and no shirt. And he's kind of just spinning at rehearsal awkwardly. And I didn't know who Jeff was. And then it's over and I think I'm doing something and Tina had passed a monitor and she went, "That's my husband, you fucker." What have you done to him?
Yeah, I learned so much.
I don't care what he does. He'll get an Oscar for scoring something, and I'll still think, you were Cupid.
I learned so much on that show. I learned how to, get ready for a bit, how to not peak too early, how to figure out what the audience, just basically how to play the rhythm of the audience, camera blocking, all that stuff I knew nothing about.